AVST Live webinar. Today's topic is Skype for Business, Secure Voice Messages. Our presenter is Neil Butler, our Director of Sales Engineering, and before Neil gets us started with the presentation, I'll just let you know that the slides are available for download. You can find them in the handouts area of the webinar panel, and we will also send out a follow-up email with those as well as the recording later today when that's archived and available. And of course, we will have time for questions at the end, so you're welcome to type those in at any time, and we'll of course let you know when it's time to open it up for questions as well once Neil wraps us up on the slides. So with that, Neil, go ahead.
Thank you, Ann, and thank you everyone for coming. We always appreciate when you show up for these. Otherwise, it'd be a very lonely process to be sitting here talking to myself about something that I think other people can benefit from. So we'll just jump right in with that. We always start this a little bit with a kind of introduction of who we are. Now, I know a lot of the people on this presentation are regulars. They're both customers and our dealers that come to these on a regular basis and know who we are. But I also know there's a lot of new prospects and opportunities who, probably got our email broadcast, that found the subject interesting and are coming in, but don't necessarily know who we are. We are not the best known name, even though we've been in this industry since it started. In terms of very early in the voicemail industry, the founders kind of the unified messaging part, and then right into the unified communications. So all this is about really is for those of you that don't know who we are, you can rest comfortable. We've been at this for a very, very long time. Long enough to understand that what you really do in this industry is listen to your customers, because everything's changing in their world, which means what we supply and what we do has to change as well. We make communication software to make employees more productive and more responsive. That's really the goal of what we do. And it's focused around calls and voice messages. There's other things we do, but that's sort of our entree into the market. And what we've learned over the years is what's needed in an enterprise varies. There's business level needs. Maybe generic voicemail and automated attendant would be kind of at that level. There's specific needs for workers, considering how mobile people are today, how different the working environment is than it was 10 years ago even. There's real challenges for people to maintain good communications with their customers and coworkers because they're not just sitting at their desk anymore. And then in the middle, the teams or the collaboration piece is sort of a new place. I mean, we've always had meetings and teams, but that used to be 15 people going down the hall into a room, and that's not what this is anymore. So all of these areas give us unique challenges. So because we started so early and we've had a product that's been so successful over the years, we've been able to really make sure we focus on all of this, and it's made us pretty successful. And within that success, comes kind of an obligation for us to make sure we're taking care of our customers. And that starts not only in the sales process, but as soon as you become one of our customers, people will start talking to you, because what we want to know is, why did you choose our solution? What was it that was in that solution that you found compelling? And also, if there are areas where you didn't see what you needed, we want those as well. So if we kind of talk to our customers, the first things we find out in the general legacy voicemail replacement market, they like us because we have all the old features. And basically, we connect to everything. We have the best interoperability. So if you want to extend the life of some of your telephony infrastructure, regardless what everyone else is saying about having to forklift it out, we really make that happen. And we do it in such a way that you not only don't lose features, but you gain the availability of lots of new features. And at the same time you're looking at those sort of things, there's also a lot going on in the industry. Unified communications changes every week. I mean, there's something new. There's a new thing that everyone is worried about. And so we have to keep our eye on that because our customers can take advantage of that. So in the unified messaging, the find me, follow me, or personal assistant market, speech enabling applications, when you look at us, we have those solutions. We're leaders in most of those. So that makes our customers comfortable. And the last piece I think they find helpful is because of our interoperability, because we're not owned by one specific PBX vendor or networking company, we have a future going forward with you, however you go. If you have an older TDM switch and want to keep it, we're fine with that. If you're going to keep it for a while, but then you're going to upgrade to something new, and that might be a voice over IP throughout your enterprise, we can go right along with you. We integrate to all of that as well. If you're looking today at being primarily an enterprise-based or a CPE-based company, but you know the cloud is of interest, then you would really talk to us and find out we are ready for the cloud today, and we'll certainly be ready when that happens. So probably what our customers find about us that they like the most is our availability to fit into their world, our recognition that their world's very complex and very fluid. And one of the reasons we can do this, of course, is our platform from the very beginning was built in kind of a unique way. We had some guys that started our company who were data people primarily, and they built a true three-tier application model. So from the very beginning for us, we have a core engine that we've been working on now for 30 years. It's the most reliable in the industry, the most scalable. But also underneath that, we have the best set of connections. We have the best interoperability to every phone system, every type of architecture, every type of groupware. And on top, we have a really great suite of applications that you can sort of mix and match what you want today. So that unique platform has put us in a position to not only be around the longest in terms of CX-E. The CX-E product is over 30 years old, and that's, 25 or 26 years older, I think, than anything else on the market right now. But we've done it in such a way that we've managed to stay at the leading edge of the market at the same time. And today's leading edge of the market has some new challenges. They come in terms of kind of the Microsoft movement. Not the only thing we do, but it's an important thing we do, and it's why most of you are here. There are things going on in the communications market that are maybe just extremely revolutionary or maybe slightly evolutionary. I think time will tell. And we looked back over the last 10 or 15 years, people went from a traditional TDM environment to a lot of people have gone to a voice over IP environment, but that was fairly slow in terms of the uptake on that. What's happening a lot faster now is some of this movement that's going to the cloud. And there's great financial incentive for people to do that. There's also great confusion. So we got involved in this market about 2.5 years ago when we watched what was happening with Link, and we realized from our point of view, Link is just another PBX. It's a different kind of PBX, and from the PBX features point of view, very different. But from the point of view of what we can provide in a Link environment, we need a little bit different functionality, but mostly we just need to be able to connect into that world and be comfortable in that world. And to do that, we started working on a Link integration, which immediately told us we needed much more training in the Microsoft world. So we went out, a lot of us got trained, and we managed to maintain, so far acquire and maintain 2 certifications, the messaging competency and the communications competency. And there's only 1% of the gold partners that have both those. And this makes sense for us because this is our world. Our world's always been the communication side, and we certainly are very tightly invested with the groupware and messaging side because that's where UC is moving very quickly. About 2.5 years ago, we went to Microsoft and said, hey, we have this integration we're working on, and we think as you sell your premise-based Link telephony platform, you'll run into some pushback from customers on certain areas, and we say this because it's a market we've been in. And they said, well, thank you, but we don't think so. And if we need you, we'll call you, sort of, I think was how it went. And so we continued working because we knew we could use this Link integration, got it working, got it released, and about a month after it was released, they actually did call us. They came to us in a trade show, actually, and said, you're right, there's a lot of customers who would like to put Link in as their PBX, but can't because of some shortcomings in call management and messaging primarily. And didn't you say you had something for us then? So we went through a whole process of getting them kind of exposed to our product and what we could do. And that started a fairly quick escalation of business sort of coming our way from the Microsoft world. Not officially. You won't find us on the Microsoft site. They aren't calling us anything special. But the way it goes is if they get, or one of their VARs gets involved in a deal where there's pushback over certain issues, they see that that VAR gets our name and one of our dealers is involved in that moving forward. So as it turned to Skype for Business and their intention and their amount of getting serious went up a notch or two, we've seen the business level increase. So I would say in 95% of the customer meetings that we have with prospects, there is some discussion about Skype for Business, Link or Skype for Business. And This isn't a, yes, I've decided this year to take out my PBX infrastructure that's worked fine for me for 20 years and move everything, to the cloud or move everything to Skype. But everyone is somewhat interested. Very few people are really looking this year to say, yeah, let's just jump into this. I'm comfortable with it. But most everyone we talk to has some sort of initiative going to look at Skype. Maybe just for instant messaging in the beginning, maybe just for remote offices because there's some cost savings. But the need to be fluent in this market has gone up in our industry. Like it or not, this is a new place where we play, and we have no choice. We're actually pretty happy about that because we're unique in the market in that other than using Exchange unified messaging for your messaging and call processing in a Skype environment, the only other product that works is ours. And we took the time to go through and figure out how to build an application using native Skype technology, primarily using what they call trusted applications, such that we can replace all of the unified messaging, call processing capabilities that Exchange would offer while leaving all the rest of Skype alone. In other words, you still use Exchange, you still use Skype, everything else, but we can be substituted in to solve those problems that people have. And there's a number of them that Microsoft identified, and they'll tend to send us customers based on that functionality. So we're going to only go through a couple of them in this. We're primarily focusing on the messaging side. But one of the other issues, as people deploy, we saw that earlier slide, 80% are not, they're going to put their toe in the water. They're not going to replace everything. So quite typically, they'll start with a department or a branch office or maybe a new location that's coming up. They figure, well, now's a good time to go towards Skype. And the great thing about our product, because of our connectivity, is we can put a single CX system in that not only ties all of their legacy systems together, which is what we've been doing so well in this market for 10 years, but we can also tie in the Skype locations all as one system. And now as they migrate, if they move towards Skype for more people, it's just a matter of hitting a couple of buttons in a user mailbox to move those users over. The feature set's the same, support's the same, and that basically makes it a very easy and painless process to start getting into that environment. Now, no doubt, the #1 reason that Microsoft has been in touch with us and continues to send us prospects has to do with voice messaging. Such a simple thing. And maybe this could have gone a different way, but the way that everything's gone in the U.S. and throughout the rest of the world eventually is there's concern in many vertical markets and many sizes of enterprises that if I store my voice message in my email, then it is subject to discovery. It is, disclosure, legal issues, that whole compliance piece. So the first couple of big customers that Microsoft sent our way had said, yes, we'd love to put link in, but we will not store our messages, our voice messages in Exchange. And one of the great things about our system, it's very flexible when it comes to unified messaging, and it should be. We were the first in the market. I think it was 1990 probably when we started installing our first unified messaging systems. So we've been doing it a long time. We're very flexible. We've talked to these customers that have all these concerns, and we've come up with options that pretty much can satisfy everyone. And it's flexible enough that while we can do it exactly like Exchange does, where we put the messages in Exchange and all the tools and everything are there, we also have other options. And we'll look at the options a couple of slides down. But the big part, kind of the red warning flag that goes up first when a customer says, yeah, I'm interested in Link, but I'm not going to store my messages in Exchange, well, that works in our favor because eventually Microsoft will hear that and they'll send some information our way, and we go out to our dealers and bring one of our dealers in. The Link deployment goes normal for all the rest, but we actually end up owning that call processing piece of it. For us, voice messaging is the core. It's where we started back in 1983. When we first started writing code, we were a voicemail system. Back in 1985, when we first came out with our product, we were selling through an OEM, through US West actually back then, and it was a little 4-port voicemail. And we did not go after enterprise. Enterprise were owned already quite well by Octel and some of the other larger players, so we were a branch office system. And the branch office voicemail market was very competitive. The way it went is one one company would come out with 3 new features, and the next company would come out with those features plus 3 more, and it was a giant features war. And of course, what you ended up with a lot of features that people didn't need, but there are always some that are popular. Early on, we realized we had an advantage because we were already running on standard hardware. We've always run on industry standard hardware and software. So there's a couple of things that we could do. One is we could grow. We could scale our product quite easily because we were using the type of infrastructure that scaled already. And secondly, we could connect to things. From some of the very first days, we looked at adding IVR and fax and things to our product that went well because we could sit on a network and we could go out and touch other pieces, other solutions. We were a prime platform for unified communications. And certainly unified messaging was our first big deployment along those lines, and we were pretty successful in that. So the great thing about the product we sell today is we haven't taken any features out. So it has every old legacy voicemail system in it. Again, the 80-20 rule, most of those aren't of interest, but I will tell you, we've gotten business on a regular basis because of some old features that were still kind of threaded through a company's business process that all of the other, vendors that sell these kind of products got rid of. Because they all had to leave their old hardware, based platforms, their proprietary platforms. And when they moved sort of to a unified messaging flavor, they left a lot of the traditional call processing out. But we didn't. We have it all. We have great alternate user interfaces, so those customers that are migrating over can simply, pick the interface they have today, enable it in our system, and it works extremely well. Another thing that Exchange did not offer, they don't have, not only all these voicemail features are missing, but they have one interface, and that's it. And there's, if you've got 10,000 users, the thought of training 10,000 users for their new voicemail interface is a little bit daunting. And frankly, the value of voicemail is not such that people really say, I'm willing to do that. Voicemail is so important. Voicemail has went from a messaging system to an unanswered call notification system. The primary purpose of every voicemail you get, or almost every one, and they all sound about the same. Hi, John, call me when you get this. Or, I need to talk to you about the Baxter deal. Call me when you get this. It isn't that you don't need to have that functionality. You really do. People need to know that they have told you that they want you to call, and they expect you to call back quickly. So it's not that you can not deploy it, but the relative value in the kind of list of applications in an enterprise has definitely gone down. One of the reasons we do so many more things besides voicemail. But we can easily go in and replace a legacy voicemail system for a user that's moving to the Skype environment, and they aren't going to lose anything. One of the other changes that went along with all this, of course, is we used to sell to telecom managers. Primarily today, we sell to IT departments. And the way they view solutions and their users and everything else changes quite a bit compared to what you were used to, the way you would present earlier. And one of the big things now, of course, is security. And security not only just in the confidentiality and compliance issues, for that piece of it, but also everything else that has to do with a message being secure, a message being secure on the net and in the client, etc. And so over the years, we've just continually added features. We can set it up now that if someone leaves you a private message, they can't be forwarded. In fact, when you get them in your email client, there will just be a notification. You have to call in and get it over the phone. Then when you call in and get it over the phone, you won't be allowed to forward it. We have both our web client and our mobile client is highly secure. Our web client streams messages, so you can play them. You can get that convenience of playing them from a web application, but there's no file attachment save or no cache copy you can get a hold of. And our mobile devices, we don't store the messages on the mobile device. When you play the message, we download it and play it, and then it goes away. So highly secure is something that IT departments are concerned with. And then the encryption of our connections as well. We support TLS and RTP, so that can be encrypted on the wire. We also do HTTPS, depending on what type of transaction it is moving. And then we earn really early on. You need very strong password rules. They don't always get deployed, but people are concerned, about the security of a voicemail mailbox. So if you look at the kind of the core piece that we're really going to talk about today, it's how we do voice messaging in any environment, but mostly what we're looking at is in the Skype environment. For us, unified messaging is kind of been an evolving technology. Today we really talk about putting all the messages out there on the devices the users choose at any given time. You know, the device used to be, for voicemail, the phone, typically the phone at your desk. And then it was the phone at your desk and perhaps your mobile phone. And then unified messaging came along and it was the phone at your desk, your mobile phone, and perhaps in your email client or in a graphical client on your PC. And then as we got more mobile, it became messaging on your iPad, on whatever various devices you had. And as you moved through the day, your device of choice changed, which means you really need to make an experience that's sort of the same across all these different types of devices. So there's a lot of work in unified messaging about making the outside part of it work. And we do that extremely well, and like I say, we've been doing it longer than anyone else. But the more important piece for this presentation is the internal piece. Now, in the early days of unified messaging, when we used to talk about kind of how it worked, people would ask me, you know, so you move the messages on the web and they go here and there. And I would typically say, you know, people don't really care where the electrons live. That just wasn't a concern back there. It's how it worked. Today, people definitely care about where the electrons live. This is this whole compliance thing. Where is that message and what does that mean to me legally? Beyond the shadow of a doubt, the most robust type of unified messaging is what's called server-based, excuse me, which means we're using a single message store, the email message store. This is what Exchange does. It takes the message and puts it into the user's Exchange inbox. And we can do that as well. In fact, we were doing it for 15 years before Microsoft started doing it. So we're pretty good at doing it that way. And the advantage is you now leverage the entire infrastructure. If you have a laptop and you're using cache mode, when you take the laptop offline, you have your voice messages right there with you. If you're going on a web client, you're using Outlook Web Access, your voice messages are right there. Everything that you do gets leveraged by virtue of putting them into the email store. So we do that, and we can do that on a per-user basis. We have great forms, we have a preview player, all of that, and that's great, but that doesn't fly with some industries, some specific companies. They do not want their messages stored in their Exchange server. And that's okay. We have a couple of other ways of doing it. One of the other things to keep in mind, although we're not talking specifically about the cloud today, we do all this same stuff for cloud. Office 365 and Exchange are really equivalent as far as we're concerned. We use slightly different connector technologies in terms of the security piece of it, but we do the same thing. We put the messages up into the user's mailbox, and all the functionality we offer for Exchange On-Site we offer for Office 365. And we have a good solid Gmail integration as well. So we have the cloud-based version of server as well as the on-site version. Now there is one version we'll talk about quickly here. This is the least popular version these days. This was very popular in the early days because it allowed you to get your voicemail in your email client without storing it on the email server, and this way the telephony people could sell it and install it and configure it without involving the data side of the house, which was something they probably shouldn't have done, but they did quite a bit. And this simply says we'll turn our message store, CX-E, into something that looks pretty much like an email server. It has an IMAP 4 interface to it. You can go to any of your IMAP 4 clients and point to it, and now in a separate inbox, you can see your messages, play them over the phone, play them over the speakers. It's a great tool. The problem comes in what email clients do, and that is they let you drag things from folder to folder. So we could actually have somebody who drag a message from our system over into a folder that resided on Exchange, and that message would move there. So from a compliance issue, this one has kind of been ruled out. If you're okay with storing your messages in Exchange, you would use server-based most likely. If you're not okay, this one's not something that very many people choose to use. The one that is the most popular right now is what we call secure unified messaging, or this could just be called web unified messaging. The trick here is the messages stay on our server, but we have a web application that ships with our product for free called Web Phone Manager, and one of the things it does a lot of things, but one of the things it does, it has an inbox that will show you all your messages that are on the voicemail server. You can play them, and that means playing them over the speakers, in which case we stream them, as we said before. You can play them over the telephone. You can forward them. You can delete them. You can save them. What you can't do is get them out of the system. There's no way to forward it to an email address. There's no file attachment save function. There's not even a cache copy that a smart computer user could dig down and find. So this tends to meet the needs of the most paranoid people in the office that absolutely do not want voice messages out of the system or in email at all. This was very popular for a number of reasons. One, it's very easy to deploy. You simply load our web application on the customer's web server, and it's there. There's no site visits to the desk, no pushing out software. Very easy to do. And it's free, which certainly doesn't hurt either. The previous two we talked about require a UM license because of the client-side pieces, but this does not. So we don't license voicemail mailboxes. We don't license this. If you figure out how many ports you need and buy the system, you basically get unified messaging for everyone. We have one last piece we'll talk about, and this piece, I just kind of have it in there because it's the complete stack for unified messaging. It's called Simplified. It's really our message notification engine, a very powerful message notification engine that will tell you when you get new voice messages or fax messages. It will call you up to 9 numbers. It will light the message waiting lights, obviously, and it will send you an email or an SMS message if you like. On the email message, you can also include a copy of the message. So this is the only type where there'll be 2 copies of the message. One will still be on the voicemail server. The other will be an attachment that you get in email. You'll have to delete them separately. This version is also free. This tends to be kind of a niche application. Maybe you have 10 contractors involved in a project, and you really don't want to add them to your Exchange server, but you do want to kind of be able to communicate to the group. So you could give them all a voicemail box, and then this would forward copies of their voice messages to their existing email. So it's still popular. It's free as well, but that's sort of the last type of unified messaging. The next thing we look at in the unified messaging world is the ability to convert voicemail to text, which is very, very popular because many of us spend a lot of time in meetings, and it would just be nice to be able to look down at our device, which we pretty much all take into our meetings these days, and we could look down and see a transcription of that message. And that would tell us whether we needed to address that message, perhaps step out of the meeting or not. So it's a cloud-based service in one incarnation where we use the Mutari product and we send the message to the cloud. They transcribe the first 60 seconds of it and send it back into your email. There's also, for those that are more security concerned, a premise-based service where you actually put Mutari servers behind your firewall. All the transcription happens there. So for those people that do not want their messages going out, this is probably the version they would use. So both these are available on a subscription basis as part of the CX-E system. Keep in mind one other things we do for the people in these meetings all the time. Our mobile client will actually let you screen incoming calls before their messages. You can actually set up to get a little pop-up on your phone that says you have an incoming call from John Tyler. And now you can decide whether that's the call you're waiting for and you step out and take it, or perhaps you record a greeting to John. Hi, John, I'm in a meeting. I'll get back to you shortly. Or perhaps you push a button and send a silent greeting. So we have a lot of ways to support users in meetings, but voicemail to text is one of the popular ones. So we have some other webinars that talk about all the different elements of where we enhance Skype for Business, and there's quite a few of them. Messaging was definitely the one that caused Microsoft to bring us in, and it's the one where if we get a referral from Microsoft, that's probably what it's for, the whole confidentiality and compliance piece. But there's a lot of other things, as we've talked to VARs and as we've talked to customers, that we do that help in a Skype environment. The automated attendant piece for Skype is very, very weak. And there's a lot of traditional things going on in an enterprise. And whether you're using your voicemail automated attendant or perhaps vectoring tables on your PBX, when you move to Skype, you will feel the loss. And so we're able to go in as the solution to that kind of problem as well. We have mobility enhancements that go far beyond what Skype does. And we have our little mini informal call center, TeamQ, which we also have webinars on, which helps because Skype is a little unusual in that it doesn't really have hunt groups. It has something called response groups, which are very interesting, but they have some shortcomings. And almost anybody who's deployed Skype will be happy to talk to you for quite a while about what they wish would change in response groups. And this is another area where if we go in and we're going to fix the messaging in the automated attendant, our informal call center does something in most cases that will take care of the shortcomings in the response groups. So a lot of little pieces. Right now we're just talking about the voicemail because that is the kind of the main reason why people struggle with deploying Skype. So now we'll see if you have some questions.
We do have some questions coming in. Thanks, Neil. Just a reminder, if you would like to submit a question, you can use the orange arrow in the upper corner of your screen, which you probably have the question area minimized. And there's also a place where you can download the slides from this session right near the question box. So let's see, Neil, the first question, if I already have CX-E with a PBX, do I need a second CX-E to integrate to Skype?
No, that's one of the great things about the product is we can integrate to up to 10 different types of systems. Not a total of 10 systems, 10 types. We actually have a couple of customers that have over 50 phone systems tied to a single CX. So what you would do is you would buy the integration and the SIP resources. You would put that onto your existing system, and now you'd have 2 integrations. And that's one of the great things, because if you're looking at buying one and then later migrating, the great strategy is to put them on both together, and then you can move users over in small groups to make the transition a little less painless.
Okay. Thanks, Neil. Next question. Can you prevent forwarding of voice messages for only specific users?
Well, you can set up users who use the web client, and then you can also have other users who use the traditional client. And the traditional client could forward messages outside the system. The web client could not. So that would be how we would actually handle that.
Okay, next question. What is the fewest number of seats where CX-E could be cost effective?
That's kind of hard.
We could certainly have sales follow up.
Yeah, we're going to do that. But
find out more about the environment.
I will say this. We are more likely to be a really compelling player in a larger market. When we get down into the 100-seat and less, it depends on which of our different features. You know, if you give us a chance to talk to you about all the things we do, we can still be compelling down there as well.
Okay, great. Let me just do a quick scroll through. There was one question about getting the recording. And yes, we will have the recording available. Takes a little bit of time to get that uploaded, but you all will receive a follow-up email from us today with a link to the slides as well as a link to the recording. And if you think of any questions after we conclude, it looks like we've gotten through all of them. There weren't very many today. If you think of questions, you can always submit those back to us at any time in our generic inbox, which is info at avst.com. We do monitor that, and we'll make sure to get that question to the right person who can respond. And we just want to, again, thank you for joining us today, and look for future webinar invites from us. We hope to see you on another webinar, and I'll also let Neil wrap us up.
Sure, thanks, Ann. Well, you know, feedback from you would be great, because as Ann said, we do these webinars. We'll be doing more. Knowing whether we're hitting the spot correctly, whether they need to be shorter, longer, cover different subjects, very handy for us to know. So if there are things you're looking for out there, you just let us know, and we'll be happy either to talk to you one-off, or if it's something that will make a good webinar, we will add that to our list of webinars. So thanks, everybody, for coming by.
Have a great day, everyone.
To learn more about AVST, please visit www.avst.com.